welcome to CRE Talks. My name is Sky Revel and I will be your host today. I'm from Atypical and today we'll be discussing the future of retail marketing. Just some housekeeping rules. If you do have any questions, please use the Q&A chat at the bottom. We will leave some time at the end of today's discussion to answer any of your questions. Cool. Just to go through some upcoming virtual events. So if you haven't already registered, these are the next CRE talks that will be presented in the coming weeks. If you want to know more information or register, please visit the CREtech website and all the information that you need will be there. But let's kick off. Cool. So we are very excited for today's discussion. Like I said, my name is Sky Revel, and with me is Mark Kalkoff, the CEO of Atypical.
Hi, everyone.
We are a digital marketing agency focused exclusively on the commercial real estate space. And today we are joined by some CRE marketing powerhouses, Sherry Lynn Meagle from Phillips Edison, Kristen Moore from Brixmore, and Jen Maish from Kimco. Cool. So I'm going to dive straight in. As we know, COVID has completely rocked our industry and changed a lot of our strategies, forced us to completely pivot. And we really wanted to use this opportunity to learn from one another, learn from our experiences, and really kickstart the conversation into how the strategies that we've had to adapt and change to now, how this is kind of going to change the way that real estate marketing looks like in the future. So I'm going to dive straight in. Kristen, we know that conferences have completely changed. It's one of the vital deal-making and networking opportunities, and obviously majority of conferences have gone virtual. Can you give us some insight into how you guys have approached the virtual conferences, and if you see this approach being a long-term strategy, or if you think this is just filling the gap for now?
Sure. So there's a couple things. One, we just finished our virtual recon. We did 5 meetings last week, and we used Zoom breakout room technology to do that. So we kind of met as a larger group, the CEO, our head of leasing. We even had a live bartending session to simulate our cocktail party. Met as a larger group, and then it broke out into smaller groups where the leasing agents could talk with the brokers in those particular markets about opportunities in that market. And so it was actually a very effective tool for us. We were able to meet with a couple hundred people all at once, and we were able to get interest immediately on 15 spaces just within days after the technology or meeting. So it was a really effective way for us to do that. And so now we're looking at how do we do that for more opportunities? How do we do this for portfolio reviews with national retailers? So it is a tool that we're going to continue to use. It's an additive tool. I don't think it will fully replace the one-on-one conferences because relationships are super key in this industry. But I do think it's additive.
Kimco held a virtual deal-making conference as well on June 9th, and we did have a lot of interest. We had 141 meetings and over 320 attendees. I think there was some hesitation at first internally. I think number one, people maybe were concerned about the effectiveness of the platform, and number two, we wondered if we were just going to be a little bit too early in shifting the conversation towards deal-making after a rough couple of months. But I think all parties were pleasantly surprised that the tone of the conversations was really positive. I think everybody was happy to get back to talking deals again. It was a nice change of pace for both the landlords and the retailers and brokers. And we did survey people afterwards, and overall people really enjoyed the experience. They thought that the format was effective. We're definitely comfortable continuing that sort of format going forward, maybe with some enhancements that we'll make based on the feedback that we got. But like Kristen said, I do think that there's going to come a point where the opportunity to travel and meet people face to face and talk deals that way again is going to become really appealing. So this will probably be a supplement to that. One thing that I will say that we did that I think we might stick with was before the meeting, we sent out a recorded video message from our executive team where we gave a broad update on our COVID response initiatives and some of our signature series projects and key opportunities. And that gave a chance for everybody to be briefed beforehand. So our team spent less time repeating themselves over all these meetings all day long. People came with that information and we can get more directly into the deal making talks. So even if we go back to in-person meetings, I think that's something that we thought was effective and we might stick with going forward.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, people have been going to Recon in Vegas for years. So they have that time in their calendar that they want to be making deals. So we also did a virtual deal making. So I think it's good that you hear that many of us did that and we were very effective with the virtual deal making. But agree with both of them. I mean, people still want to meet in person. They still, it's just, there's nothing like that face-to-face and building relationships.
Yeah. Jen, you raised an interesting point around the sort of sensitivity around, leasing and deal making and lead generation. And I think, as the pandemic sort of kicked off, everyone was very sensitive about, the timing around everything, social media, what do we do, when do we do it, when is the timing right, when do we say it. But I think, as we now sort of start to get back to some kind of normal, I think, lead generation and leasing is certainly becoming, top of mind for a lot of organizations. Sherry Lynn, I mean, I know that you guys at Phillips Edison have taken a very kind of collaborative approach to working with the leasing team and figuring out timing and how to do things, and just interested in your thoughts in terms of, that collaboration, but also, what that looks like going forward and the timing and your thoughts around that.
In the first couple of weeks, when COVID was starting up and stores were closing, our leasing agents actually reached out to everyone that had closed and had personal conversations. So I think that was a nice touch with them. The nice thing about Phillips Edison is that we own grocery anchored shopping centers. So literally our centers never closed. And so we've started with our lead generation and marketing for leasing. We work closely with our leasing team. I feel very fortunate. We're having conversations every day with our leasing teams on how we can help them. We haven't changed a lot of the ways that we're doing lead generation. Facebook has been very effective for us. And I think with more people actually working from home, it's probably been more effective, whether it's through messaging, marketplace, or Facebook ads.
We did feel that there was sort of a time period when it wasn't really appropriate to talk deals again or promote available space. But it does feel like that shift has started to happen definitely in the month of June. And we see the requests from the leasing team picking back up again. I'll say the one thing that we did was, even though we stopped those sort of communications, we didn't stop communicating with those audiences. Like, we were still sending e-blasts to brokers, just saying, hey, we're in this together. We're thinking about you. Here's what Kimco is doing. So the fact that we kept those lines of communications open has sort of made it an easier transition to go back to the leasing conversations. I'd say overall, I think there was already a shift happening towards, social selling, Facebook canvassing, virtual tours and things of that nature. And I think that now it's just accelerating that adoption, and more of us are going to have those as tools in our tool belt that we'll use now, but we'll probably continue to use going forward.
And one thing that our agents used, during this time, is helping to build their brand on social media. We have a very popular Fridays with Fred series with one of our leasing agents that's been in place for a couple of years. But during this time, someone else started like the veteran and the rookie series. Agents are promoting their properties on Instagram. So just doing all kinds of unique things to try and, for lead generation.
I think the other thing that's come up is that it's forced us all to rethink what we've always been doing and find new ways and new tools. So you're also starting to see new things, like we've added a web page that has second generation space for restaurants, hair salons, and nail salons. So it's a quicker, easier move in. Cheryl Lynn and I both have a new broker commission program where it's 100% commission right up front on a lease signing over the summer. We even have new sales materials to target people or businesses that are in closed malls who may want to come into an essential center now that people see how impactful essential retail is in drawing customers and shoppers all the time, no matter what's going on.
I think that's also been, a big focus of ours at Atypical is, we historically, we have, put a lot of effort into understanding the sort of psychology behind the target audiences that our clients are working with us to get in front of, whether that's a potential tenant or, on the B2C side, the actual shoppers, or on the technology side, a consumer of that product or service. But, over the last 4 or 5 months, we've spent a lot of time trying to unpack the sort of psychology behind the mindset of people coming out of a long-term trauma situation, and not just changing your marketing strategy, but also looking at the messaging and, the kind of imagery that you're using and what sort of emotion and, how that's going to be interpreted and sort of felt on the other side. So that's, I think that's obviously it's an important factor, I think, to take into consideration during the strategic planning.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. I mean, the content is so important. It's not, now is not the time necessarily just to build your brand, but more like, how can you help your customer? I mean, what is that? How can you establish that relationship? So it's not just putting Phillips Edison out there, but, what can we do for you today?
Yeah. Along those lines, I mean, something that you guys have been doing, all 3 of your companies, tremendously well is supporting your tenants during this time. And obviously, acquiring tenants and promoting your available space is important, but supporting your existing tenants has been top priority. And I know, Jen, you guys have been doing remarkable work with the TAP initiative. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I can say that definitely since the pandemic hit in the US, our team was really all hands on deck in terms of brainstorming ways that we could help our tenants. And I think the same is probably true for Sherilyn and Kristen. We were really particularly acutely aware that access to capital would be critical to their ability to, keep their business afloat through any sort of extended closure. So we focused our efforts on helping them access government-sponsored relief funds. One of the first things that we did in terms of our COVID response was, even before Paycheck Protection Program was finalized, we created a short video that walked tenants step by step through how to apply for the economic injury disaster loans on the SBA website. So we found, in speaking to our small shop tenants in particular, that just the process seemed very daunting and overwhelming and confusing for a lot of them. And there was often even a language barrier that was a problem. So with our TAP program, Kimco funded free legal assistance for tenants to help them identify and apply for government-sponsored disaster relief funds, particularly focused on paycheck protection. We translated those marketing materials into Mandarin, into Spanish. We had lawyers that could help in those languages. We had law firms across the country that were assisting our tenants. It was really pretty remarkable. I think when all is said and done, we had over 600 tenants that expressed interest in the program. And then to date, with loans submitted, loans approved, and those that are still underway, it represents a pipeline of approximately $20 million in total funding that could go to our tenants, which was huge. And then just personally, for me, to work on that project has been, for sure, one of the highlights of my career. I was answering those emails personally as they came from tenants who were struggling, and to read their struggles was heartbreaking, but it was also so encouraging that we actually had some concrete help and assistance to offer them that could really, help get their business through.
Yeah, and I think it's important that, a lot of us also focus on programs that helped independent retailers, because they don't have as deep of resources as the nationals might have. So we focused on working with some tenant consultants on developing programs that helped kind of counsel and help them with identifying operational and marketing practices for the new normal. So we started with a restaurant group with tenant mentorship, and we got some really great results. We got good feedback. They were able to not only survive, but grow their sales. So we're now expanding that into family entertainment centers and boutique fitness uses as well. There was a real value in matching retailers together, like retailers in different markets. They really fed off of each other in the sharing of ideas, just like Sherilyn and Jen and I do. It was very similar for them as well, finding other businesses like them and hearing what's going on in different parts of the market or countries, so they could see what's coming ahead.
Sherilyn, you're on mute. Oh, there we go.
We like to refer to our tenants as neighbors, and it's really, that's kind of that philosophy when we were trying to help them during this situation, is like, how can we help our neighbors? So like most of us, we created a website, but we also did a lot of webinars where and with great attendance, on everything from reimagining your restaurant business to using social media, and we had a lot of interest in that. We also have Dashcom, which is our kind of our internal communication platform. So that was really invaluable during this. So whether it was a request from a neighbor coming in, or we were, putting out information about the latest on the CARES Act, I mean, we found that to be invaluable as well. We are also doing a tenant rewards or neighbor rewards program where they get credit for reopening, within a certain period of time. Leveraging social media to promote what's going on in their communities and a variety of different things.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think on the social media side, I mean, that for me is it's kind of my focus area within Atypical and something I really enjoy. And obviously, we've all been spending a lot more time on social media than ever before. And I think a lot of brands are also starting to realize that it is such a great and easy platform to get their message out there. Obviously to help their tenants promote themselves on social, promote tenant programs. But I'm interested what each of you what approach you took to social media communication from both a B2B and B2C side. And if that's, obviously your audience has probably grown quite a bit during this time as a result of consistent communication. If you've seen more of a value in social as a result of being on it more over this time, and if you're going to kind of continue that strategy going forward. Jen, do you want to kind of kick us off?
Sure. Yeah, like I said earlier, we had those few days when the pandemic first hit and mandatory closures started, where we were kind of like, ooh, what do we start saying now? And maybe we had 2 or 3 days of silence. But then once we started thinking about those ways to help our tenants and rolling out those programs, the content from corporate really just started exploding, and all of a sudden it seemed like we had more to share than ever before. I guess we were lucky in a sense that as an organization, we were doing all these interesting things. Yeah. We truly were focused on the well-being of our tenants. So the communications and marketing, it was a little bit easy for us because we really were doing the positive things that we could then share and talk about. And we were able to be very authentic in tone during what was a difficult time. And I think that's one of the major takeaways for us through this is the authenticity in your content. Yeah. We also have the extremely important conversation and awakening happening right now around racial injustice that's still prevalent in our society. And even in that conversation as a company, we made the decision to make our position known both internally and externally, just so that our associates would never be left wondering whether the organization really hears their experiences and supports them. I think as an industry, we can all agree that we still have a lot of work to do there, but it's important, I think, that, and Kimco's not afraid to admit that and talk about the steps that we're taking to address that. So really that authenticity and engaging in difficult conversations and being true to who you are as a brand during a difficult time was important 100%. For us. On the B2C side, it was sort of the same. At first, we stopped all our promotions, but then quickly we're able to shift, which I think everybody pretty much did, to, supporting our tenants in any way that we could, like who's still open for takeout, who's offering delivery now, what's the updated cleaning protocol, what are the new hours, and then those initiatives that we were doing to creatively use our real estate, like hosting blood drives and community lunch pickups. Those were things that we started promoting in our B2C channels.
Yeah, it was very interesting how you had to instantly change your social media content strategy very fast. And so our vision is to be the center of the communities we serve. So we really changed to kind of what Jen was mentioning, focusing on messaging that helped the community. So all of those retailer messages about hours, pickup, delivery options, all of that. We actually had a volunteer team of employees who monitored the top 100 retailers that we have for their social media posts, and we amplified those. So we actually posted 268 posts over 6 weeks. Another way we used it was Twitter. We reached out through Twitter to members of Congress to lobby on behalf of some of the economic measures that Jen had mentioned, payment protection program. So we used the tool to help lobby there as well. And then if we had any tenant initiatives where they were helping the community, like restaurants feeding healthcare workers, making masks for local healthcare workers, food, farmers markets in the parking lot, any of those types of things, we also amplified those messages as well. Interestingly, we did see a shift in social media. You asked, did we see a change? You know, you have to kind of keep it in perspective because every social media channel that we have targets a different audience, but it only really generates, like last year, 2% of our website visitors came from social. Majority of that came from Facebook, LinkedIn, and then Instagram. Well, we did paid posts on Facebook and Instagram. But this year we pulled back. We didn't do the paid posts because our messaging had changed. And our now social media accounts for 4% of our website visitors. And because we're not doing the paid posts, the social media importance changed as well. LinkedIn became the #1. It was half of that traffic. And Glassdoor slipped in as #3. So you can see there's this change for employment information and things related to that. So I thought that was an interesting shift this year.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's
very
good or bad that people had a lot more time to be on social media working from home. Our content, we shifted as well. I mean, we stayed quiet for the first couple weeks, but social media was really invaluable for sharing the resources that we had out there. I mean, whether it was our webinars or our videos, so that was really valuable. And what I really loved during this kind of a silver lining is the creativity from the small mom and pop neighbors and what they were doing. And so we love sharing the good news stories, like whether it was a pottery store that, you know, was doing the take home pottery kits, or, you know, the fitness clubs that were doing, like, you know, the remote fitness classes. So we love sharing a lot of the good news, or like some of our neighbors that were giving back to their communities. So that's how we really tried to use our platform. Is a lot of it, I mean, before it seemed like it was more about Phillips Edison and what we were doing, but really it shifted to like, what are the neighbors doing for their communities? And also, you know, what are our property managers and our teams, what are they doing, and how are they, you know, how are those relationships? So it was a lot of a positive.
It's definitely forced a lot of brands to kind of look at how they can contribute to the conversation instead of just adding to the noise.
Yes,
you know, what can they contribute to that conversation that's really going to add value? I think it's something that whenever we talk about social media, we say, you know, try and find something that you can speak to, that you have experience, that you can add to the conversation. But I think this has kind of forced people to do that and sort of fast track that whole process. So yeah, it's been interesting to see what sort of brands have, and you know, what they've come up with and their strategy around that. But you know, just while you were all talking, I was kind of thinking that it's quite amazing that, you know, we're talking about all of these strategies and these phenomenal things that, you know, the industry and this group has done over the last 3 months. And you know, the fact that we've all been doing it from home and sitting in our kind of work from home environments, and you know, it's amazing how quickly we've all just adapted to working from home and set up. And you know, at Atypical, we, you know, three and a half months ago, the entire team started just working from home. And you know, we're lucky that we're a digital agency, so we're used to, you know, working, you know, online. But it certainly was a shift. And I think what it did do for us is kind of fast-tracked a lot of those tools that we knew were out there and that would make our processes and things a lot better and more efficient, and kind of sped up that whole process. And we definitely discovered a couple of gems along the way with technologies that, you know, we've embraced and started using, that we'll continue to use as we come back into the office. But, you know, Kristen, I mean, or everyone, but starting with Kristen, I mean, have you kind of discovered any tools along the way that either from your personal kind of working environment, or for the bigger organization or leasing that you can kind of talk to?
Yeah, I think a number of tools have kind of bubbled up. One is Placer. We use mobile phone data to track customer traffic patterns. And we've been using that to monitor week over week and year over year traffic changes and essential centers versus non-essential geographic regions, that type of thing. We've also used Esri ArcGIS, which is basically using publicly available data on a mapping platform. So we use that to track, we're now in hurricane season, so use that to track any centers that could be impacted by hurricanes heading their way. We're using it for public health data to see when we should reopen our offices. So that's another decision point. Social listening tools have also come into play, particularly with the riots and the looting. You know, we also learned about some planned activity at a center hours in advance, so we were able to evacuate the centers and get everybody safely out. Business listing optimization also came into play, which is managing your Google business listings, because in the beginning, they immediately ranked or noted that all the centers were closed, which was not true for our product type, the open air centers. So that was another one. And then I think virtual tours are also going to become another technology platform that's going to raise in importance.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of those tools. Placer, we had been using Placer already, but it was especially interesting to see a new use case in monitoring the essential versus non-essential and seeing how the stages of reopening were starting to impact traffic at our centers to see where the real activity was happening. Aside from those that Kristen already mentioned, I think that the increased frequency and the enhanced quality of the tenant communications that we've been having over the pandemic have caused us to explore tools that will enable us to better segment our tenant base and communicate with them effectively. So that's something that we're looking into now as a result of the last couple of months.
Yeah, as I mentioned, Dashcom, which is our internal communications tool, it's been invaluable because we can actually track requests, and I think it's been good for both for us and then also for our neighbors. And Mark, like you said, the being able to work remotely, I mean, we have about 300 associates, and hats off to our IT team, because really it was a shift from, you know, people that are used to working from home and working remotely, and, you know, a whole nother group that they were used to going to the office every day, and really we didn't skip a beat. So I think using technology and, like Kristen, you know, some of the platforms that you mentioned, it is, I don't want to say it makes our job easier, it just provides us with more data to help us make better decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I think also from our side, just, I mean, we're obviously an agency, we manage multiple clients. For those of you who don't know, we're based in Cape Town. Our entire delivery team is in Cape Town in South Africa, but majority of our clients are in the States. And I think, we've always obviously had technology to be able to easily communicate, and we've been used to kind of conference calls, but it's kind of accelerated a lot of the like scheduling platforms and monitoring tools that before we were kind of thinking about, and we were like, yeah, we should probably get it. And then this kind of, because everything was so available and people were coming up with so many better alternatives, and I think that was also really interesting, and it's made us so much more efficient than we were before, because we kind of just have had to be. And it's kind of like you're kicking yourself, like, why did I not have this sooner?
Yeah, we still can't wait to get on the plane and
yeah. We're very excited for the face-to-face meetings.
So in terms of relationships with sort of property management, I know that it kind of varies, you know, company to company, and how involved you get with, you know, the property management side. But interested in everyone's thoughts in terms of how the relationship has changed and the sort of collaborative approach to dealing with the situation. Sherilyn, you want to sort of give us your thoughts?
I like to refer to our property management team as like superheroes, because I mean, they were really, we like to think of ourselves as locally smart, and they were really the boots on the ground that, you know, made things happen and like gave us a lot of feedback of what needed to be done. I mean, for instance, like the Front Row to Go program, giving shoppers access to that curbside delivery and pickup. I mean, they did that so quickly. Outdoor dining, implementing outdoor dining at our properties. And if they see a handwritten sign, they might email us and say, you know, can you create a sign for this neighbor? So just the level of service, the customer service that they provide to our neighbors has been impressive. And so we've always had a very collaborative relationship with the property management team, and I think it continues to elevate just because they're our eyes and ears at our shopping centers.
I think the other thing is they've gotten a lot more involved in consumer programming. We haven't typically hosted a lot of B2C programming at our shopping centers, but as a way to help the tenants, we've increased that. And so the property managers have had to be the point people to implement that. So there's things like drive-in movie theaters, there's sidewalk sales, there's food drives for, to collect food for these food banks that are very much under stress. So it's interesting to see how they're now becoming like the extended arms of marketing. And then it goes the reverse way. So we also have a volunteer team of about 100 people who are an extension of the property management team and visiting the shopping centers and getting eyeballs on it to make sure that the maintenance and operation of the center is still operating properly, because they're more restricted in their movement. So it definitely has increased the interaction, I think, between marketing and property management a lot over the last 3 months.
Do you think that's something that will continue as in future, or do you think it's kind of specifically for this situation and will return to the way it was afterwards?
I think you'll see it continue. I think we've all learned how important, we all know how important the tenants are to us. And so all of these things is just an added value to serve those tenants, whether that's consumer programming, tenant assistant programs, all of that signage that Sherilyn mentioned, it all helps the tenants. It's super key. So I think you're going to see a lot of that increase.
Totally agree. I feel like a strong partnership between marketing and property management just leads to enhanced customer service and a better overall tenant experience, which is something that we've for sure seen. For the first time, we were able to even get our hands on some of the property management communications. And I think that they have appreciated, us putting the marketing touch on those communications, and it's just resulted in better communications to our tenants. And I think, that relationship will continue to grow, and the biggest group to benefit is going to be the tenants.
Some of the best content that we've received for our social media is from property managers. They've learned how to take photos on their iPhones, and so it's like they are the ones that we've shared a lot of the content that they've provided to us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love, we've seen it here as well. We're obviously seeing it with a lot of our clients, but how creative people are getting, like you said, Kristen, the drive-through movies and the initiatives. And I just think it's brilliant. And I think it's creating a wonderful sense of community that was kind of starting to lack a little bit. And obviously, like as we go back to normal, returning to shopping centers and getting people to feel comfortable with the shopping experience and to go there, beyond just going to get their groceries, to actually spend time in the centers and shop. And what other kind of initiatives, Jen, maybe you can start with your centers doing to kind of get people back into the centers and make them feel comfortable and encourage them to shop again.
As Sherilyn mentioned before, the open air sector was lucky in that, our centers never closed and people were still visiting our centers during the pandemic. And in fact, they were more important than ever. I think the first major initiative to get people comfortable coming back was the curbside pickup initiative that I think all of our companies have now rolled out. That was sort of the first step in making them comfortable and feel safe and returning to those retailers who may have been closed and were now allowed to open with curbside only. It's interesting that curbside is another example of something that was gaining traction before, but now I think so many people have used it, it's just exploded, and it's really going to be a common part of the shopping experience going forward. We've also, with reopenings, started to partner with our tenants, restaurant tenants in particular, to be able to offer outdoor seating so that they could serve more customers safely within the requirements and restrictions that they have right now. So that's been a big initiative now to get people coming back and eating in a way that's safe. At the shopping center level, we have started to experiment with some creative ideas and events. One example at Dania Point in Dania Beach, Florida, this weekend we held a Salute to Seniors events. So a lot of graduations have been canceled. So we had students from all over South Florida submit graduation photos, and we posted them up all along the main street of the center. And then we had a parade, which was led by a street marching band, where people came out, families
Awesome.
decorated their cars, and had all the decorated cars drove down Main Street, and the kids got out and took pictures in front of their graduation photos. And then we had the merchants participate. We gave everybody goodie bags full of, you know, coupons and treats and things like that to get them to come back to the center. So that was a great event. It was a lot of work that the marketing team down there put into it, but the amount of feedback that we're getting of families sharing those photos and just being appreciative that they were able to do something special for their kids with graduations canceled was really great to see. And then we're also trying a few smaller things, like at a smaller grocery anchor center, we're doing some live entertainment, curbside entertainment, where people can listen to music in their cars while they're waiting for their, you know, dinner order to be ready to be picked up. So just kind of starting small in terms of getting people back to our centers and experiencing all that we have to offer again in a way that's safe.
Yeah, we looked for, we're working on something with ATYPICAL on a contactless treasure hunt using mobile Facebook platform, where you find the GPS coordinates and then you look for the clue at the property and scan on Facebook Messenger to see if you're an instant winner. So again, having to find ways to safely bring people back to the center with a contactless way, but also responding to the fact that people are anxious to get out again as well. So we hope that'll appeal to families with kids, because it's going to be tied to back to school shopping season.
The nice thing, like we said, is that we have grocers in our shopping centers. So our centers, if when you look at some of the tours during this, they were busy. I mean, the drive-through windows were busy, and so of course there were a few stores and people that needed to be closed, but a lot of our centers remained busy. So we're continuing to promote some of the unique things that people are doing, like Jen mentioned, the outdoor dining, but also there's some take-home, you know, some takeout opportunities, and so that's kind of what we plan to do is, you know, let's promote what the individual neighbors are doing. And we've also tried, you know, some texting programs, email. I mean, I feel like email is still effective with consumers. And so just trying a lot of different things to bring the communities back together again. I mean, one thing that a local chamber did at one of our centers, when you talk about parades, every time a store opened, they did a parade through the center. And it was so fun and festive. And because I think people are excited. They're excited to get back to this, you know, to their local community shopping center.
Yeah. It's, I think omni-channel has been something that I've heard discussed at a lot of conferences over the years. I mean, I think it's one of those topics that always kind of comes up. And I think it's historically, from my experience, been more, you know, discussed in sort of fashion and, you know, with brands that have, you know, maybe more of a sort of online presence. But this situation has kind of fast-tracked a lot of that omni-channel experience to brands that might have not explored it otherwise. You know, the curbside, where you're starting the journey with that brand online or through their portal or through their, you know, store online, and then you kind of still go into the brick and mortar environment, but you're having this kind of omni-channel experience, which is, it's interesting. And I think it'll be fascinating to kind of see how those brands continue down that path and make that experience better for people, and recognizing the pros and cons of both of those kind of environments. You know, what can they do on the online environment, which they maybe can't do in a brick and mortar environment, and then also looking at what people still crave out of coming to a center, and making sure that you're giving that to them at the end of the day, and finding that, you know, that best of both. So I think that's going to be a fascinating kind of space to watch and see how it develops.
Yeah, it's interesting. When this first happened, everybody was so panicked that they weren't online, and they said, oh, you know, we've been saying for years that it's all about online, and now you need to be online. And, you know, the people that did have online setups were doing really well. But I think now, you know, despite the concern, and obviously everyone wants to feel safe, but people are craving being able to shop and just like walk around and browse. And I mean, that's how I feel. How do we think, like, I mean, obviously at the moment, shopping centers are becoming like the center of the community, and it is where a lot of people are congregating. Shopping centers of the future, I mean, how do we think they're going to change? Do we think, you know, are you guys preparing for any drastic changes, you know, from an experience level? Kristen?
Yeah, I think one of the things you saw is definitely an online presence. I think you also found that you needed a brick and mortar presence. It was both because delivery services had long delays. They were inundated with the orders. And so you found that they also needed the brick and mortar presence. So we are actually seeing inquiries for space from warehousing or places that want to be distribution centers because we are the last mile. We're right next to where people live. So we're seeing actually requests for space for that type of use. I think you'll see curbside pickup, as Jen mentioned, is absolutely here to stay. Center configurations change to accommodate that safely, so it's not in the drive lane, but they're able to do it without interfering with the pedestrian traffic and maintaining that safety. Grocery delivery services, I think that really took off as well over the last 3 months. And so I think you'll see a lot more people comfortable with that. And so there are implications on center configuration for that as well. Outdoor seating, I think there's going to need to be wider sidewalks so that we can accommodate more outdoor seating. Even tenant spaces are going to start to change because people will need more space so that they can do wider aisles and accommodate more tables. So I think you're going to see a lot of things like that. And the other thing we're thinking through is like more green space. Some people just
I was about to say.
able to go outside, right? And so even looking at more green space. So these are a number of things that we're looking at and how is it going to impact the center of the future.
I agree with what you said. People do want to shop. You saw when like the shopping centers open back up, people are waiting in line to get into their favorite retailer. And mask, 6 months ago, people wondered, like if you saw someone, it was strange. Now they've adapted, but they still want to be out and about. And I agree with you on the green space. I mean, people want to be outdoors. So it's nice that we have outdoor centers.
It's amazing the amount of activity we've seen around certain tenants, like all the Treasure Hunt, the Marshall's Home Goods, TJ Maxx. I mean, I see it. I'm in New York where we're just starting the last or maybe the third out of 4 phases of reopening. But I see it on my Facebook moms group every day. Somebody asked the other day, does anybody know when the Holy Trinity is opening? And they were referring to Marshall's Home Goods, TJ Maxx as the Holy Trinity. Like people are dying to get back in there. I agree with everything Kristen said about center configuration, maybe also additional drive-throughs, people may be asking for. But I think, I tend to think that overall people are going to go back to what we were doing before pretty quickly. I think we're already seeing that almost to a fault, that people are going back to the way it was before too quickly. So, I think this will have long-term implications, but I'm a little more of the mindset that I think after a certain period of time, it's just, maybe I'm being hopeful, but it's just going to go back to normal.
Yeah. I mean, I think something that I've really enjoyed over the last couple of months is, this was very clear before this, but I think it was just kind of highlighted over the last 3 months, was how collaborative and how sort of together this commercial real estate industry actually is. And we've had so many amazing conversations and discussions and learnings and chats from the entire group, and I think that's been just amazing to see. And I think the ICSC Back Together campaign, I know that you guys have all been involved in that, and just interested in whoever hasn't heard about that campaign, maybe Sherilyn, you can give us a quick overview, but do you see that as something that's going to kind of continue as collaborating with your peers on bigger campaigns and kind of pulling together behind one message, or do you think it's just a kind of COVID situation and you'll return back to the way it was before?
Well, the Back Together campaign, just to give you a little background on it, it was developed by ICSC, and it was really an initiative to help ICSC members come together with one voice about the importance of retailers and retail real estate through, whether it's digital or print, but coming together with one voice and reminding people that, they're happy to be back together. It's whether it's, having ice cream together or having coffee together, dining out, you know, having your hair styled. But Ray Longston, an SVP of ICSC, did a really good job, I think, with communicating with the different property types to figure out, like, how can we have one voice? Because it's very, you know, it's very different what the three of us are doing versus what the malls or maybe the larger lifestyle centers are doing. So she put together a marketing digital toolkit that we can use with this back together sticker that you'll see hopefully throughout shopping centers throughout the country. And as part of that, Andy Simpson from Urban Edge put together a video challenge, which really shows like people, like the stores opening up, wearing the mask, welcoming people back. So if you look at, I think, Brixmore and Kimco, your videos are both live, and a few others, and you'll see that over the next couple months. But it's nice to see the energy at the properties. So that's just one part of the campaign, but ICSC has a campaign that all members can use in their communities.
We actually haven't been challenged yet, but I'm hoping that somebody will challenge us. I can't promise that anybody's going to be dancing like Urban Edge was. Our relationship with property management isn't that good yet, but we're hoping to throw our hat in the ring soon. But I think overall, ICSC just throughout the crisis has done an excellent job of bringing the industry together, you know, through something like this, but also through their advocacy initiatives. So that's, I think, been one of like the overall silver linings, is that we kind of really come together as an industry. And we've been using the Back Together logo and hashtag, especially on social media. And it's just a feel good thing for everybody. Like when I open up Instagram and I see all those pink hearts and Back Together logos, it really adds to the optimism and that sort of shift in tone that I think we've all felt over the last couple of weeks.
Even before ICSC came out with theirs, we as a group, the Open Air REIT group, had already been talking about how could we work together to create a campaign. So to your question of collaboration, our group definitely collaborates quite a bit. I mean, Sherilyn and I both tested Facebook Messenger in different ways last year, and we shared the results with each other, and we talked about other ways we could band together to test different tactics so that we could expand our marketing budgets by working together. So I do think you see a lot more collaboration. I rely on these ladies a lot. I mean, we share a lot of information. It's definitely made us all better.
That's what I think a silver lining, like getting to talk to Kristen and Jen and our others in our peer group, because a lot of these things, I mean, we're doing similar programs to help, you know, our tenants, and it's just, it's been a highlight of each week. Yeah. Is a sharing of resources. And then also, I mean, the credit, you know, for the two of you, like having partners like you. I mean, a lot of the things we had to react literally overnight on some of these programs. So it's nice to have partners that you work with to help us navigate some of the things that we went through.
Thanks, Sherilyn. Yeah, I mean, a couple of you have mentioned sort of silver linings throughout the discussion today. I think, you know, for me, I've definitely noticed a couple of silver linings in my personal and kind of business life. And for example, I can't remember, it's been years since I've had breakfast, lunch, and dinner with my 3 kids and my wife. So that's definitely something that, you know, is a beautiful silver lining out of all of this. And you know, Kristen, we were chatting last week, and you mentioned a couple of things, sort of unexpected silver linings. Maybe we could finish off the sort of formal side of the discussion tonight with everybody just sharing something that's, you know, unexpected silver linings that came out of the last couple of months.
For me, it has been, because I can't do everything the way we normally do, I have to rely a lot more on our entire employee base. And so I've discovered these skills, these hidden talents I didn't even know existed. So for our virtual recon meetings, I needed a bartender, and I reached out to our employee base. I found that one of our accountants is a professional bartender. He was fabulous. Another one, I needed video for that video challenge. I had a week and a half to put it together, and so I had to reach out to some property managers. One of them turned out to be this amazing videographer. So I think that's one of the benefits or silver linings for me, is finding all these hidden talents and feeling believe it or not, a lot closer to my employee base. I feel like I'm talking with a lot more different employees that I didn't normally get to talk to before.
I agree with that. I mean, I loved watching all the departments come together and people that you don't normally work with, we had a committee that would meet every week and talk about ideas, and we could not have put together that resource page with everyone contributing. So I loved all the collaboration, and we have a great culture anyway, but I think that during this crisis it really has brought everyone together.
Totally agree.
I've also enjoyed my meals with my family too. I don't think I've never not been on the road this long ever in my career. So.
Yeah.
As a person with a 4-year-old and a 10-month-old, I have to say the kids has been the silver lining and also the dark cloud of my pandemic working from home experience. We're getting a little bit more adjusted to it, which has been nice. But now it's summer and I could set my son up with his first swimming lesson and I could be there to watch it during my lunch break, which is stuff that I would have completely missed if it were not for this. So that's definitely been a silver lining. Absolutely the way that we've banded together both internally as an industry, and then I think the enhanced landlord-tenant relationship that we've found and that we've sort of forged, and that enhanced communication, I think is something that's going to stick around, and I think it's really going to benefit both parties going forward. So it's something I'm excited about.
That's great. Thanks.
Yeah, my silver lining, also personal, I got married and 2 weeks later went into lockdown. So it
was a dark cloud.
Got that wedding in.
It's quite a marriage tester, but silver lining is that I'm still married. So no, we're back at the office 3 days a week now, but that was fun. It's been a nice test. So we have 8 minutes left and we've got a question from Bradley. I'll just pose it to the group and then if anyone wants to jump in. What applications or softwares are being used to assist with social media and marketing that you would recommend? I mean, we've got a couple, but I'll let you, anyone else? Anything you've been using that you think has just been great?
I'd probably mention a couple of the ones that we talked about was Placer has been super huge for us. I think Yext or Reputation.com can help you with that business optimization, business listing optimization. And then I know you guys have made some recommendations on social media listening tools. Yeah.
So we, as an agency, one of the tools that we use is Later. And we use that to schedule all of our posts and then to monitor our analytics as well. And something that is really important to us, obviously as an agency, but just in general, is to make sure that you have a tool that analyzes your analytics properly and can give you really valuable insights. So Later is one of those platforms. They're just super great at giving you really detailed information about exactly who your audience is, when they're active, what kind of content they like to look at. And I think, like Mark said, earlier, it's not just about throwing content out there, it's about throwing the right content and actually contributing to the conversation in a meaningful way, and making use of a platform like Later. Hootsuite is also brilliant for, which is free, it's a lot cheaper than Later, to monitor your platforms and to listen and social listening. I think it's really important that you have a tool like that. Or just, Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, good, but Facebook and Instagram's insights are a lot better. Just taking the time to actually use those tools, dig a bit deeper.
Yeah, I think another tool that is definitely sort of overlooked a lot of the times is analytics, Google Analytics. Yeah. I think with marketing initiatives, something that we're always surprised is, that people don't wire up the sort of UTM tracking information on all of their campaign activity and stuff that they're putting out. If you have those parameters linked to every piece of content and every initiative, you can set up all the reporting and all the analytics in Google Analytics, which is free, and you can see exactly what's working, what's not, what your traffic is doing. There's some pretty advanced stuff that you can do on analytics. You can even set up custom event and event tracking on your website to tie back to analytics. So, if you don't have that, that's certainly a free tool that you can start using today and get a long way down the road.
We've got another question coming in from Robin. How will marketing be helping leasing brokers moving forward?
I think for us, in terms of our relationship with leasing, I mean, we've always had a strong partnership, but I think as I go back to one of the takeaways that I had, which was authenticity and content, and I think Sherilyn mentioned it, but I think we're starting to see the value in really empowering our leasing staff to sort of establish their own brands and let their personalities and expertise shine on social media. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more value in that than in the, templated broker e-blasts or the, standard drone flyover videos. So it's something we're putting some more thought into, how we could bring that authenticity that we had in our content from corporate during the pandemic to the leasing side of things.
I agree with that. And also we had talked earlier on Facebook advertising, and you can target so well. So I mean, that's something that we'll continue to explore as well.
We track how our deals are done, the tools that help those leasing agents. One of our most impactful tools is custom brochures. So we will continue to use customer brochures, which we use Placer data for to help sell and give authenticity to our brochures. But another tool that Jen had mentioned, but we haven't really gone into much, is Facebook prospecting, which is using Facebook Messenger to reach out to prospective tenants that you want to move into your centers to see if you can get them to relocate. Beth Azor does a great training webinar on that. And we have 73 leads right now just from Facebook prospecting this year alone. So it is a very effective tool as well that's easy for anyone to do.
Amazing.
This is the great thing about our relationship, is that anytime Sherilyn or Kristen says something, I write it down so that we can think about doing it too.
Good.
Yeah, I think working with working with the brokers and kind of having all of those minds on one call and really kind of taking everything and putting it into one sort of initiative adds a lot of value. Because I think as marketers, we kind of, we run with the ideas that we think are the best ideas, and we understand the audience, but the reality is that the brokers are the people who are actually kind of talking to the potential tenants, and they have a lot of insight that they might think we know, or that we think we know but we've misunderstood. So having the broker side and the marketing side working together to figure out the language and the kind of imagery and the things that would attract potential tenants, I think is definitely, something that we've seen work well in the past.
And that's critical, I think, in having them in at the beginning of the conversation versus having the program put together and then presenting. So I think just that collaboration is critical, and having someone, an agent who will provide the data, like, so you can test the effectiveness, is important as well.
While we've got a little bit of time, we've got one more question, and I think this is a great one, and we touched on it very briefly in the beginning, but what has been your experience with tools like augmented and virtual reality to market properties, especially in a COVID environment? So I know we touched briefly on virtual tours and maybe how you're equipping your leasing agents to be able to do that, but have you been using any other kind of augmented or virtual reality tools that you think you would recommend?
I think the virtual tours are important. I mean, as people were not able to travel, so I think they'll continue to be more important. Obviously, drone videos have been helpful too, so people can see the areas. But I think there's a lot more people doing the virtual tours, so I think it will, the cost will continue to come down, so we can do more and more of those.
Yeah, I love augmented virtual reality. I think that technology is great, but still not cost effective for the number of projects that I have 400 properties. It's just not economically feasible for us to do it. Interestingly, video is very effective. We just posted a video using time-lapse footage from one of our construction projects, and we got a leasing inquiry the next day from that social media post from a national restaurant chain. So it's very interesting how just something as simple as a time-lapse video can really drive interest. So love virtual and augmented reality, but not quite economically feasible for us yet.
Yeah, sorry, Jen.
Oh, I was just gonna say there's so many great tools out there, and I think that they have their place in the sales process. But one of the things that we have been thinking about is, for every single space available, how much information do we want to put out there so that basically the person never has to contact us, and they can, at a certain point, are we having prospective tenants rule themselves out before they even make the phone call and talk to us? So we want to have just enough information there so that the tenant still needs to come to us, and we need to have that conversation, because you also have different levels of sophistication with prospective tenants. You have somebody who's seen a vacant space and built out space before and can see the possibility of what that vacancy can become. But you may also have a first-time business owner who would go and look at a virtual tour of a space that looks like nothing and then be like, I'm not putting my cookie shop here. So we try to be cognizant of that and do those sorts of things when it's appropriate, but not have so much out there that it's going to have people start ruling themselves out before they even, come to us for a discussion.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, because the other thing is they can be looking at one vacant space, and if they talk to us, they may find that we have a space that's coming available in a place that has better cross traffic for them. So it's a really good point.
I think also just your point on it being not a cost-effective tool. I think what's really great about, everybody has an iPhone, and there's so many cool things that you can do on an iPhone that can create that like virtual tour. And I think it's forcing people to be a little bit more creative and to put themselves on camera and just take a video of their space or take a pano. And it doesn't have to be very expensive. It doesn't have to be a very difficult process. It can actually be made really simple, and anyone can do it. And I think that's also quite nice. It's kind of helped kind of bridge that gap a little bit as well. Cool. There are no more questions, and we are out of time. So I'm going to end off there. Thank you so much. You three ladies are absolutely incredible. You're doing amazing work. We love working with you and learning from you, and have really enjoyed just listening to your experiences and getting to have a great chat. And thank you to all of our listeners for today. Thank you for the great questions and for joining in. And if you would like to subscribe to any more of the CREtech Talk events, head on over to their website for more information. Ooh, enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.